Victory Sport Production. I'm your host, Suttles, and today we'll be talking about some of the edge rushers or free agency that the Giants can possibly get, and maybe even a trade. Let's get it. The New York Giants. We all know what we need. We all know it. We all been talking about playmakers, wide receivers, maybe even a tight end, linebackers, but everybody knows that we need an edge rusher. That's what we need. We need a bona fide edge rusher. And in this draft, I've been doing player profiles, and from my studies, I haven't gotten all through it yet. But from my studies, this is not the class to get an edge rusher. There are no dominant kind of edge rushers in this draft. Now, can you draft one and he can potentially, work his way into being that kind of stud? Yes, of course. But as for straight from college coming into the pros, kind of like how Chase Young is, like how Nicky Bosa is, there is nobody like that. So for our edge rushers, we're going to have to look on the free agent market. Now for the free agencies, the salary cap, it's really up and down. There's really no definition. We do not have the exact amount of money that the Giants will actually have because they'll have to cut some guys. They'll have to, maybe release some guys like Tate and Solder, and that'll free up some cap space. And then they'll probably renegotiate or reconstruct a lot of contracts so that they can have more salary cap room to be able to sign some of these free agents. But there are three in particular that I will be focusing on, and also one trade potential that I'll be focusing on. But the goal for this edge rushing, for this free agency, is this: low risk, high reward. I'm going to say that again: low risk, but high reward. We're not looking for a guy that we're going to pay boatloads of money for 4 to 5 years. We're looking for guys who are going to be looking to prove themselves because of some type of, situation that happened throughout the season. So let's get started. One of the guys, Melvin Ingram. Now, he's on the older side. He's on the plus side of 30. And they signed Joey Bosa to a nice deal with the Chargers. But but Melvin Ingram also got injured this season. So what does that mean? He's going to be a free agent, but he was just injured in this past season. So this is a low-risk, high-reward type player. He is on the plus side of 30, so he's not going to be getting crazy amounts of offers. Nobody's going to be giving him any long-term contract because of his injury history just this past season. So this is the kind of guy that you can get on the free agent market with a 2-year, $20 million deal, 2-year, $18 million, where you'll literally be able to probably get a Pro Bowl type edge rusher for the cheap because he's going to try to prove himself after the injury so that he can maybe get those bonuses or maybe get those that long-term contract after the fact. But it's going to take at least a year or two for this guy to be able to get back to 100%, and you can take advantage of that. Having Melvin Ingram as our edge rusher, Patrick Graham was able to scheme up some very good pressure this season, but we did not have a dominant edge rusher that will command double teams, that will command somebody to really scheme block for him so that the other guys can eat. Now, Leonard Williams did a phenomenal job this year by getting pressure up the middle, but a lot of his sacks was coverage sacks. But that's what we wanted, and that's how our team was made. If we can get that edge, that guy who can come off that edge and really push the pocket up, that's where the Giants' really strength is. They get pressure up the middle, they just don't get it on the edges. Melvin Ingram will be a great addition for a 2-year contract, very low minimum. Like I said, low risk, high reward. Another guy, Bud Dupree. Now, we was looking at Bud Dupree last season from the Steelers, and this guy, he just comes off the edge like a cannonball. and he puts the crazy amounts of pressure on the quarterback, as we seen in the first week of the season when we played the Steelers. But he got injured. He tore his ACL. So he was on the franchise tag. So what does that mean? He's going on the free agent market because now he's going to have to prove himself. This is another guy that you can give a 1 or 2 year deal with for a minimum amount of money, probably 20, 22 million, and you can potentially get a Pro Bowl type edge player for the low price because he's coming off an injury. He's coming off a torn Achilles. And we all know that when you tear your Achilles, it takes 1 year to really rehab. I mean, you can be out there, but you're not the same player. But it takes that second year where you are 100% ready to go. You give Bud Dupree a 2 year deal. And at the end of it, he can see the light of the tunnel of potentially a 4 or 5 year deal. He is going to play his ass off. And that is the kind of guy that we would need to help out this defense. Low risk, high reward. Now, another guy, we was talking about him all offseason last year, Yannick Ngakoue. We was talking about him all last season. Giants fans, they wanted him. They was clamoring for him. But he ended up going to 2 teams after the Jacksonville Jaguars. And between them, he wasn't doing the best, but he's looking for that big money deal because he is so young. Now, is he the guy for New York? Possibly. Possibly he can be that edge guy, but because he's so young and because he's looking for that big money contract and he didn't come off of an injury, so he really doesn't have anything to prove. He just has to prove that he can be that number one edge guy. You're going to give up a little bit more when it comes to Yannick. I mean, PFF got us signing him for a 4 year, $75 million deal. That's what PFF has us doing. Now, that would look pretty good depending on how everything is, depending on how much money we actually save. That may be good or may be bad. Now, that's kind of like a high risk, high reward because if you give him that money, and he's allocated to that, and then he still only does what he kind of did with Jacksonville, where he wasn't, putting up crazy pressure numbers. He wasn't doing anything, phenomenal, but he also doesn't play the run that well. So do you really want to give up that much money to a free agent that may not even have the fire and desire because he already has the money? That's the problem when it comes to free agent. You have to be able to gauge how hungry the player is. And, Yannick, that is a huge question mark for him. Now, the potential trade candidate that I see that's a very low risk and a high reward is J.J. Watt. A lot of people have been talking about this, and I 100% agree. The Texans, I don't know what they're doing down there, but they are pissing off all their players, and they don't want to be there. J.J. Watt, Captain America, this guy has been phenomenal. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer the minute he retires, but he wants out of the Texans because of the way the organization is doing it. Now, you're saying J.J. Watt, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, we're going to have to give up a boatload of stuff, a boatload of capital just to get him. Not necessarily. A lot of what J.J. Watt done in the past, you're not paying for his past, you're paying for his future. And his future, he's on the plus side of 30, and he's nearing the end of his career. And his contract is expiring. And the best thing about this is that he doesn't have any dead cap space. So if we was to trade for him and then we was to cut him halfway through the year, we don't lose anything. So that is a very low risk, high reward. Now, what are you going to give up for him? I truly believe that if you give the Texans probably a 3rd round, a 5th, and a 6th, you'll get J.J. Watt. Or maybe even, next year's 2nd and a 4th, you'll get J.J. Watt. When it comes to football, the capital of players are not as huge as what you think it is. Now, at some positions, they may overpay, a la like how the Rams did for Matthew Stafford. They may overpay, but then a lot of guys are in between where that capital you think is so high, but it's not. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins got traded just for a 2nd round draft pick. So that's what we have to really gauge. When we're talking about J.J. Watt, we're talking about the plus 30 J.J. Watt, who hasn't had the best seasons, who has been injury prone, but he still commands that attention. I believe a third, a fifth, a sixth will bring J.J. here, and or a second and a fourth will bring J.J. here. And if J.J. is on this team, you will see that defense be transcendent because of his leadership skills and the way that he commands the offense to scheme to block for him. Everybody will eat, and JJ will be the reason why. And this has been a Subtle's Take for Easy 3 Sport Production. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and also share the video. Sharing is caring. Help the channel grow. Until next time, I'm out.